Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from No Long 254 and says, am I the arsehole here for telling my father I'd rather let a stranger walk me down the aisle, and he'd be lucky if he was even invited to the wedding. Throwaway account because my family knows my main. As the title says, I, 24 female, snapped at a family dinner and told my father, 56 male, that I'd rather let a stranger walk me down the aisle than him. For a bit of context, my father always wanted my brother and I to have a traditional wedding since I was a child. He always told me how much he looked forward to eventually walking me down the aisle, and I too shared his excitement. However, that changed the day I found out he had cheated on my mother. The affair was a one-time thing. However, he kept in contact with the women for over a year before my mother caught him. This completely changed my view of him, and although my mother decided to forgive him, his behaviour after the fact only made me detest him more. He got more aggressive, would often turn to alcohol, and basically became a stranger. He only got worse when I entered my teens, and now that I'm in my 20s and have put more thought into my future marriage, I know for a fact I do not want him walking me down the aisle, even though I know how much this will hurt him. Instead, both my brother and I agreed that he'd be the one walking me down the aisle, as he was the father figure while I was growing up. Now here is where the problem began. I no longer speak much to my father. However, every year or so my mother hosts a family dinner. Since they're still together, my father is always at these events. Unfortunately, he often uses them to get drunk and complain about how upsetting it is that we no longer speak to him. The only reason I keep coming to these dinners is because I love my mother. However, I love my mother and do not want to make her feel like I'm abandoning her. I've tried to organize outings with just my mother. However, my father always strong arms his way into these meetings, and in my opinion, it isn't worth the fight. However, yesterday, I just snapped. During the dinner, the topics of marriage was brought up. My brother recently proposed to his fiancée and was talking with my mother about some of their wedding plans. My father, who was already drunk, piped up about how much he was looking forward to walking me down the aisle when I eventually got married. I immediately apologized and told him that I'd already decided my brother was actually going to be the one to walk me down the aisle. I added that, instead of me, he could walk my mother down the aisle before I entered, so he could still have his moment. After a long pause from him, my father started yelling. He told me that I was an ungrateful brat, how he couldn't believe this is how I repaid him after all he had done for me growing up. I remained silent while he went off on me. But after he told me I should be lucky, he even still wanted to walk me down the aisle after how I treated him. I just snapped. I told him that I would rather a stranger walk me down the aisle than him, and he'd be lucky if he was even invited to the wedding. I know my wording was harsh, but I was just sick of him berating me. Once I had finished yelling, my father broke down and started sobbing. He kept on repeating that I was such a bad person for taking this from him, and how I could do this to him after everything. I couldn't handle staying there, so I left the dinner shortly after. Today I was bombarded with texts from my mother about how I shouldn't have said those things, that I know how my father is and what alcohol does to him, and that I should have just remained quiet. My brother is on my side, but I know my mother is right. I've experienced my father under the influence and know that the best way to handle it is to stay silent. Still, when he said those things about me, I just couldn't stop myself. So Reddit, am I the arsehole for telling my father I'd rather let a stranger walk me down the aisle, and he'd be lucky if he was even invited to the wedding? Absolutely not the arsehole in this situation, and honestly, good for you for finally standing up to him. In the end, your father created this mess all by himself, his infidelity, years of aggressive behavior, and now he's trying to play the victim because you won't reward him with walking you down the aisle. He's just trying to manipulate the situation. And the absolute audacity to say that you should be lucky he still wants to walk you down the aisle after how you treated him. You gave him a compromise and was generous doing so by saying, you can walk mum down the aisle in front of you. Again, absolutely not the arsehole. Your brother stepped up as the father figure when your actual father checked out, so absolutely allow your brother that honor if that's what you choose, but a commenter says, not the arsehole. Your father is a selfish drunk, and it doesn't seem likely he ever really suffered any consequences from his affair or any of his actions afterwards. Your mum defends him, which is classic codependency behavior. It also seems like your dad became abusive as time went on. I think that if your dad is anywhere near your wedding, a wedding dinner, or a wedding reception, he's going to be trouble, and it's going to mar your memories of the best event of your life. Opie says, I appreciate your verdict. I know it seems obvious that I should cut contact, but I just want to keep the peace in my family, and really don't want to lose my mother after all that she has done for me, even if she defends my father. My father struggled with nicotine addiction while we were children, and he fixed it by turning to alcohol. He did enter rehab for a while, and that is where he met his affair partner. When he was caught, he relapsed. We were told to just move past the whole affair, and if we brought it up, my father would either start sobbing or get aggressive. My mother is entirely financially dependent on my father, and although she has always denied it, I sometimes think that is the only reason she stayed. Regarding the abuse, my father never really physically harmed my brother or I. He would, when he was already really drunk, slap us, but my mother always managed to stop him, so it never got truly bad. Although, and I don't know if this counts as verbal or any other form of abuse, he would often drive dangerously when we angered him in a car, complain about our attitude or yell at us, mainly when drunk, and kick my brother out at 16, and me when I just turned 17. These are just a few things I can recall off the top of my head, but I'm sure my brother has other stories from the time we were living with him. But the commenter says, not the arsehole, your father is an abusive drunk, and your mother is both enabling him and allowing him to abuse her children. I understand you love your mother, but she's clearly choosing to support his verbal and emotional abuse of you for whatever reason. I can't tell you what you should do. Only that if it was me, I'll tell them both the above, word for word, and then block them until they decided to grow up. Opie says, sorry about the deleted comment. I believe Reddit glitched and it looked as though I had replied twice. As to what I said in the original comment, I know my mother is painted in a poor light in this interaction. But when we were teens, she would protect us whenever he got physical and would defend us when he entered our rooms at midnight just to scream. She has always been my support system alongside my brother. I don't know what I would do without her in my life. I don't know what she's had to put up with now that we are out of the house. A lot of comments are saying I need to cut her out as well, but then I don't know how I'll be able to make sure she is safe and taken care of. Commenter says, I grew up with an alcoholic father, and that is no excuse for his behavior or lashing out. He screwed up so badly over so many years, your father needs to get his act together, and he is not owed anything by you or your brother. OP says, my brother and I tried to convince him when he was sober to consider rehab. My mother doesn't want him to go because that is where he met his affair partner, and he doesn't want to go either, as he claims it didn't help him the first time. I often find myself considering just cutting him out of my life, but then I have no way of knowing if my mother is safe. I don't trust my father with her. Commenter replies saying, it is like talking to a bottle to reason with a drunk, but he had it coming. Maybe repeat those words to him while he's sober and then hit home better. You probably forgot them already. Opie says it's hard to find a time when he is sober, as I often only see him during these dinners and he is either already drunk or doesn't plan on socializing until he is. Opie then tries to defend their mother's actions for staying with her father and says, I understand, maybe I'm overly justifying my mother's actions, but I still don't see her as an enabler. I may be naive, but I still think she was just too scared to leave my father, as she had no family in our country and was dependent on him financially. So Opie did come in with an update and says, it's been about 2 days since I told my alcoholic father he wouldn't be the one walking me down the aisle, and since then things have only gotten worse for me and my brother. Reading all of the comments helped me realize my mother, although she shielded us from most of the abuse, was still an enabler and showed no signs of ever stopping my father's behavior. However, she is still my mother, and I didn't want to immediately jump to no contact. I talked it over with my brother and we decided it would be best to have a final conversation with my mother alone. I finally answered her text basically telling her we needed to talk without my father present, and that if he did show up, I'd leave and have to consider going no contact. She agreed to the arrangement and we decided to meet at a nearby cafe for lunch, at my request. I arrived first and my mother came about 15 minutes later, with, you likely guessed it, my father in tow. Maybe I was still naive to think she would follow through on our agreement, but I had truly trusted her to come alone. I just got up and left the cafe. Although it was hard, I followed through on my threat and blocked her on everything. I thought that would be the end of it. However, this morning she showed up at my doorstep, this time without my father. She looked so disheveled and just so lost. I couldn't close the door on her, so I invited her in. We had a long talk. I told her about how much hurt her behaviour caused my brother and I, and my father would still cut him out of our lives until he was at least a year sober, and that she needed to finally start encouraging him to better himself, or leave him, otherwise would also be going no contact with her. I told her that if she did ultimately decide to divorce him, both me and my brother would be there to financially and emotionally support her. We ended up talking for about 2 hours, the majority of which was spent mostly crying. During the talk, my mother revealed the real reason she wouldn't leave my father. She was the one who had an affair first. It was with a co-worker at her old waitressing job. Instead of dumping her, my father told her they could stay together if she would follow his rules. Basically, he was allowed to have at least one hall pass. She couldn't talk to anyone of the opposite gender, and she had to quit her job and give him full access to her finances. If she broke any one of his rules or tried to leave, he'd tell her family, who were extremely against cheating, what my mother had done, and do everything in his power to ruin her life. After she finished, I tried again to convince her to just leave him, telling her she'd still have my brother and I. The revelation that my mother also cheated has hurt me deeply, but at the moment, I still just want her to leave my father. However, despite my best efforts, my mother apologized for everything she had done to us, but still said she was going to stay with my father. I have now lost both of my parents, and I've been a sobbing wreck all day. It's not what I wanted from this situation, but at least I still have my brother. Hopefully I will eventually be able to move on, but for now, I think I just want to rest. Sorry if there are any grammar mistakes, I just need to vent out what has been going on. Thank you for all your support, and I'll update you all if anything changes. Thanks. Edit, since I've gotten a lot of comments about the fact that it seems I am perfectly fine with my mother's affair, I would quickly like to clear some things up. I am by no means siding with my mother or defending her for her affair. I just wanted her out of the toxic marriage, which is toxic on both sides, but she is an adult and ultimately she chose to stay in it. All I will do now is try and ensure I do not become like them, and I hope that they both get the help they need. I still do not like my father, as he was abusive to us. However, I am now also aware that my mother isn't much better. I feel sympathy for both of them due to their situations, but don't agree with either of their actions. While I was writing out this post, I had no idea how much her affair actually affected my family's life, my father's later behavior. Reading the comments helped me realize the extent of how horrible her actions were, and I am by no means defending or supporting that. I will need a moment to adjust to this information, as now I have a new perspective on the years I spent believing my father was the villain while my mother was the hero. So please bear with me while I take it in. Also, I've told my brother everything, and he is too looking into therapy to help him move forward. Anyways, I hope this clarifies some things, and I'll answer any questions in the comments. Edit 2, sorry if it wasn't clear. I've gone full no contact with both of my parents. Commenter says to OP, I'm glad you're able to see that your mother was enabling, finally, and that you held your boundaries, but also got a chance to talk to your mum. Gently though, you can't control your mum. To give her an ultimatum like that is ultimately the same thing as what your father has done to her. I don't condone what either has done, and maybe no contact is the right thing to do still, but I still stand by my suggestion to get yourself to therapy, ideally before getting married, as these behaviors trickle down, whether you want them to or not. Opie says thank you for your comment. I have a therapy session booked later this week. I have no intention of becoming like my father, and will do whatever I can to ensure I do not end up repeating his behavior. I let my emotions get the better of me in the way I handled things with my mother, which is no excuse, but hopefully I'll be able to stop this behavior from continuing to show up in my life. Opie clarifies on her mother's affair and who cheated first, and says I believe that my mother's affair came out during a visit while my father was in rehab. When he asked for a hall pass, he already knew who he wanted to have a one-night stand with. My mother agreed to only a one-night stand, as that is what she did, and that is why it was revealed he kept in contact with his affair partner. I'm not sure if they have ever slept together again. She got upset. My father had already started to drink alcohol every couple of nights after he got out of rehab, likely due to my mother's affair. But I believe the way we treated him once we found out made him turn solely to alcohol for comfort. I do not support my mother in her decision to have an affair, and my view on her has changed drastically. However, whether she cheated or not, she is still in a dangerous situation with my father. Making sure she is safe should take priority over my feelings. I also still remember all of the good years I spent with my mother after the cheating incident, and even though it's likely only that way because she was never outed, I can't help but associate her with those memories, whereas my father is associated with his alcoholism, and that is all I can remember of him. Hopefully that answers the question, and if it doesn't, please let me know and I'll try to answer as best as I can. Another commenter says, so your mother cheated on your father and then stayed silent as she watched his relationship with you fall apart due to his supposed betrayal of her. His subsequent descent into alcoholism and destructive behaviour, and how much this hurts him, you, and your brother. I really hope you told your brother the full story, both because he deserves to know and for your relationship with him. And another commenter says, sad all the way around. The adults royally screwed you over, OP. Dad's affair was discovered when you were a child and he went off the rails afterwards. Not having the facts of your mother's affair gave you a skewed perception, but doesn't excuse their choices or behaviour. He doesn't get to walk you down the aisle, not because he cheated. You're not cutting your mother off because she cheated. You're cutting them off because they made choices about their relationship that negatively impacted your childhood and makes it impossible to be around them. I wish you strength and healing. And the final commenter says, this is an example. You should never try and make it work after infidelity. I don't know how your dad was before your mum cheated, but it certainly didn't make him better. Now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Messy. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Our next story comes from LongDress1947 from the True Off My Chest subreddit and says, I know that my husband is cheating on me. I need to tell someone. I, female 40, found that out about 6 months ago. I went into total shock. I thought he, male 39, loved me because he tells me that every day. We have a beautiful family together. 3 children, 5, 4, and 16 months. Beautiful home, vacation home. We are close to both our families and everything else is perfect. She, female 35, is a co-worker of my husband that I know very well. She has been in my home. I've comforted her when her husband cheated on her and left her for his new woman. I saw her pain. Little did I know she would inflict that same pain on me a few months later. I saw her nudes on his phone, talk about their hookups on Messenger. She isn't even beautiful. She's disgusting, pathetic, and miserable. I know I'm being a disgusting misandrist here, but I can't help myself. What does she have that I don't? He disgusts me very much. He's pathetic and stupid. My respect for him is gone. I've chosen to pretend that I don't know. I love my life and I'll be damned if I share my children and not be able to see them every day of their lives. Not him nor her deserve me separating from my babies, my home, my family, my comfortable life and my safety. Sometimes I think he knows that I know. When he looks at me and asks me to come back to him, when he asks where I am in my thoughts, it feels like your body is here but your mind is 1,000 miles away. I don't answer him. He starts to argue. Sometimes it feels like he is doing it to provoke a reaction out of me, but I never answer or engage until he gets tired and leaves me alone. I never initiate anything with him, and when he has me, I just let him, and I refuse to let him pleasure me. In the beginning, he complained that I'm distant and cold and that I want him to use protection. I told him I stopped using birth control, so he has to wear protection. His complaining stopped when I told him that it's either this or nothing. 6 months later, I am mostly at peace with my life. Still a lot of ups and downs, but the downs are getting fewer and further apart. Today was a down, so I needed to vent. The part of my heart and thoughts that were occupied with my husband was suddenly empty, and I have found out that I'm pretty good at filling the void with other things. New hobbies and even more quality time with my babies and loved ones. All is well. Acrobatic says, it seems like you already emotionally checked out and really just staying for the kids and the life that you have. Hope you find peace for the life you chose. Free Parfait says, it does, exactly like my mum did 20 odd years ago. And as a child and now adult from that experience, it is best to just leave. The resentment my mum now holds is almost sickening, and I have no idea how to have a healthy relationship because of it. Significant says, is he the breadwinner? Girl, you have so many options, especially with proof of the affair. You'd be surprised how many men don't fight for their children. I think you staying and distancing yourself got yourself through a lot of hurt that would have come if you just separated. Talk to a therapist if it will help, but don't teach your kids that this type of love is the love they should settle for. This is why so many of us are messed up in the head and allow other people to mistreat them. There's so much life and love in the world. Opie says he is the main breadwinner, yes. We had a fight about a month ago, or not a fight, more of him complaining that I'm distant and neglectful. And he asked me what I wanted and kept asking and pestering me. I said I wanted him to leave me and give me my children. I would leave everything else to him. He was stunned for a while, then he calmed down and he said that I should take this idea out of my head. I'm crazy if I thought he would abandon the children. Queen Legolas says, I think you need to get your ducks in a row. He's going to divorce soon. I have a feeling he's going to try blindsiding you. Please be prepared. Get a lawyer and make sure he's not hiding money away to screw you and the kids over. I know it's hard to accept that you only get 50-50 custody, but that's better than him lying about you and screwing you over in court, using his money to manipulate the system. There are so many who do that. Please make your exit plan. Gather the evidence of his cheating and important documents for you and the kids, and be ready to leave when he decides to blow everything up. Did he ever ask why she couldn't come over anymore? Did she ever ask? Do you have a support system, friends or family you can speak with? I also think you need a better therapist because this one isn't teaching you how to cope properly. You're still in so much pain right now. Opie says he won't divorce. Not for her and not for anyone. There's a lot to lose in case of divorce, even more than me. I don't read their conversations anymore, but he has no feelings for her. If he chooses to divorce for other reasons, then it makes no difference if he does it or I do it. No, he didn't ask me why she isn't allowed in my home anymore, and he never talked about her again. He asked her though, if she had done something or told me something. They speculated about it, and he told her if I found out in any way, he will never talk to her again. She said that it was unfair because maybe I would find out another way, but he told her that it didn't matter how. If I did, he will never speak to her or see her again. So I don't think she will ever bother me as long as she wants him. She will not want this to come out. Anyway, if they give me a few more years, I'll be very happy. When the children are a bit older, he can leave me for her or a trash can for all I care. Domina says if he comes out and asks if you know, what will you do? Make a deal for the kids? Opie says I won't lie. I will tell them that I know. But I don't want shared custody, and that's why I don't want a divorce. I don't think he will though. He's probably as scared as I am that this will come tumbling down. Latter Yard says, I feel that this other woman knows exactly what she is doing. She knows what it feels like to be cheated on. She knows the hurt and devastation. She wants to destroy someone else's happiness. As someone whose spouse cheated, I could never cause that same pain to another woman. Max left me for that other woman, left me with 2 small children. Funny thing, she hated me. She would tell my kids horrible lies about me. I'd never met this woman, never spoke to her. I never understood why she had so much hate. They married and divorced. My daughter and her daughter are still friends. I adore this girl and love her son. I wouldn't dream of saying one cross word about her mum. She mentioned to her mum that her son really likes me, and she spouted off about me being a horrible person. She told my daughter. I told my mum that she is not allowed to talk to her about me. She said that I was a nice lady who never said anything about her. I couldn't believe that she stood up for me. I hope you find your peace. Opie replies saying it takes 2 to tango. She might have wanted to inflict her pain on a happy, unsuspecting woman, just to feel better about herself, just to feel that this doesn't only happen to her. But a good man would not have fallen for this. He would have turned her down. I hate her, but he is the one who destroyed my happiness. She can't have children, and her husband's new woman has given birth to their first child. I think she wanted to take out her hurt on her mother, because in her mind her husband cheated because she couldn't conceive. He cheated because he is a bad person. She will never get it. So 3 days later, Opie comes in with their final update and says, Hi everyone. I didn't expect that I needed to make an update about my post because I really only ever wanted to vent because nobody knows my situation and I need an outlet. Sorry about that, by the way. I have some news anyway. and mostly they're based on your comments about me needing to protect my ass in case my husband got bored of me and left me. I've never been worried before because I basically own half of everything legally speaking, but I started to think of worst case scenario situations. Anyway, Friday, my husband had made me dinner and brought me flowers and chocolate. He said he wanted to make it a night for the two of us because he felt that we were pulling apart. Kids were sleeping and he wanted me. And then he got upset because it wasn't how he imagined the evening would go and accused me of not loving him or our family anymore. I got really angry when he accused me of not loving my family, when they're all I have left to give me love and hope. I snapped at him that I didn't feel safe with him anymore, and he full well knew why I'd become this way. You know the reason why. He was shocked and looked at me without saying anything, and then just sat silent on his end of the sofa for the rest of the evening. Before bed, he asked me to tell him how I'd feel safe again, and to tell him what I wanted him to do. He went to bed. I stayed up all night and made a list of demands. 1. I wanted a post-nuptial agreement where I get my house and my summer house. 2. I become a partner at his companies at 50%. I don't know how these things work since I won't be buying in, but this is for him to fix. I'm not interested in management, just that I have my half and the passive income. 3. I want him to get a vasectomy. We were planning 4 children before all this, but I don't want that anymore. So he should have a vasectomy. 4. I want him to always wear condoms with me or never bother to touch me again. I will not even tolerate complaining about that part. Also, I want biannual STI tests. This morning I sent him a text with these demands. I know it is silly to send someone you live with a text, but I didn't want to fumble my words and forget details. I didn't want him to see me cry or be visually emotional. I just couldn't take him trying to console me. Just the thought of him feeling sorry for me makes me sick, but also I didn't want to forget anything, and I wanted it to be in writing. He read it on the breakfast table and he didn't say anything. We continued the day as normal, and when the children were in bed, we had our dinner and he said, "About your demands, I agree." I told him to start on Monday with realizing my list, and he agreed. So I guess since many of you asked me to take measurements and have a backup plan, this is what I could come up with, and it did help. I woke up today a little less anxious. I don't know how long we can keep this up, but I hope until I feel safe to leave my babies in his care. Maybe when they're all in school. Stacy says to the OP, "Well, at least you know when other woman finds out, she's going to act a fool." OP says I wanted to demand that he cut cooperation with the company he hires where she works as a consultant. But then more than 10 people would be affected. It didn't sit right with me, plus it wouldn't make them not see each other, and I honestly don't care. I just want peace and to feel safe. Signal says you should demand that none of them ever come close to your family, and sure as hell not into your home ever again. OP says I already told him that she wasn't allowed in my home anymore. That was in the beginning when I found out. Unfortunately, I think he has brought her to my home the first time, when I was visiting my brother. I think it happened in my home. I will never forgive him for that. Typical agency says speak to an attorney and have them drop the paperwork for the first and second demand. OP says I'm making him the appointment for the vasectomy tomorrow. This is the most important thing, to be honest. Signal says get a nanny cam or nanny cams to watch those doors and see if he brings someone home when you're not around. I'm absolutely baffled that he simply accepts all that without a single word about what's going on. Like nothing. Just rug sweeping and acting as if it wouldn't have destroyed your heart, family, marriage, betrayed you and your kids in the worst way possible. Because even though he cheated on you, he lies to his kids and betrays them too. I guess he's teaching them what's right and wrong, or does he openly teach them to cheat, lie, or hurt others? I know you as a stay-at-home mum do the majority of the parenting. I don't want to undermine that for a second. He's one of their 2 most important role models when it comes to morality. Never mention that he crushed their mum's heart and disrespected her to no end. And that's what he does? This will blow up into his face eventually. I can't imagine he's dumb enough to not know that. Opie says he won't be bringing her to my home anymore because he texted her that he felt sick about it. They meet up at her apartment instead. I kind of understand why he isn't bringing it up. I wouldn't if I had done something this horrid. He destroyed everything beautiful we had. And one more comment that says, I hope the hubby reads this and files for divorce. I get asking for a vasectomy, but as a demand? F that noise. She's saving her body in the event they break up so she can still have kids that way. The marriage is over. Don't give up fertility and money to save it, dude. Just get out. Opie says, I think he even liked the idea of vasectomy, to tell you the truth. He probably thought now he can do whatever without any consequence in form of child support. I don't know. We have always talked about vasectomy after we are done having children, so it wasn't a new concept. Only difference is that we wanted 4 children, but now we have 3. I think that both me and him thought 3 were enough even before all this. And we got our youngest because it turned out to be a lot more than we thought. Whenever we see stories similar to this, I always feel sorry for the kids. Obviously there's a lot of mess going on, but to stay together in this dysfunction, it sounds like, it just feels madness to me. And I always feel that, and I get this from reading comments of parents who did stay together for the sake of peace or whatever it was, that the kids do notice, and it does have an effect on them early on and later in life, which I find absolutely tragic. But what do you guys make of this situation? How would you deal with it if it was you? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.